welcome to Overtime Hockey Talk. My name is Mark Paul. My co-host Justin Baker is not himself today, I'd say, despite having the day off today, despite it being Canada Day. Happy Canada Day there, eh?
Yeah, eh?
Your Red Wings, once again, fail to get the first overall pick that they have never had in their illustrious, practically 100-year history. The last time they did have the first overall pick was 1964, before really the draft was a big deal. So we're just saying they've never had the first overall pick since there were 6 teams. So the floor is yours, my friend. Lament, cry if you need to. Let me know how you're feeling about this.
Wow, yeah, I'm actually not as angry that we didn't get the first overall pick. I'm actually more upset the fact that a team we don't know got the first overall pick. That to me is more upsetting because I think Steve Eisman put it very, very well coming off the draft lottery floor or whatever when he got interviewed. He said the odds were more in our favor to not get the first overall pick than they were to actually obtain it. If you think about it,
it's an 80% chance that you're not going to get it, of course.
Exactly. So to not get the first overall pick is not upsetting. And I went back, took a look at the last 4 draft lotteries. Excuse me. Basically, since Austin Matthews got picked number 1 overall,
right? And
to be quite honest, the teams at the top don't necessarily ever. They've never fallen in order, for one thing, and then 2. It's been a 50% chance that the worst team got the number 1 pick. So, again, you're rolling the dice. It's a 50-50 shot. So, to me, that was not upsetting. What was upsetting is the fact that, again, we have a team that potentially, is given a shot at the Stanley Cup, and they could end up, for example, Pittsburgh Penguins. How disgusting would it be if you have Alex Lafreniere sitting next to Sidney Crosby on the line? That's not fair. How are you? You have an NHL that's... fair, right? You have an NHL that is striving for balance, but yet you're going to give a team that is a potential Stanley Cup team a shot at the number 1 pick. And now I understand...
12.5% shot at it, yeah.
Now I understand, every single year the teams that don't make the playoffs have a shot. And, we've seen teams, jump pretty dang high. I think, last year, Chicago was 20th. They finished 20th. They ended up getting the 3rd pick. The year before that, you had Carolina finish 21st. They got the 2nd overall pick.
Yep.
So we've seen teams jump, and I'm totally okay with it. However, I think my biggest gripe, and something I will consistently stress until the NHL finally fixes this stupid draft lottery, is the fact that by expanding the playoffs to 24 teams, you're giving teams that wouldn't necessarily have a chance at a cup a better chance at getting a cup. So you're increasing their odds to get the Stanley Cup now at this point. However, the teams to win the draft lottery that didn't make the playoffs, you're not increasing their odds at all. You're just basically saying, you're still the same.
Yes, but if you consider the fact that in a normal year, right now we're seeing a 24-team playoff. So there's 8 teams that shouldn't be in there in a normal year. And those 8 teams would be eligible for the first overall pick.
But it's not a normal year.
I agree.
You throw it out the window.
I agree, but I don't think that you can... there was a very small chance of one of these playoff teams getting it. And it
very small.
And it happened, and it just it's so beautifully NHL. But I love it. I think it's awesome. The fact that, don't
get me wrong.
Not that I want the Leafs to lose, but if they lose and were to somehow get the first overall pick, it's crazy. It is crazy. But now there are a few teams where if they do get the first overall pick, it's going to be mayhem. The Pittsburgh Penguins are definitely one. You mentioned that. The Toronto Maple Leafs are another one. If the New York Rangers...
What if the Edmonton Oilers get it?
If the Edmonton Oilers get it, it'll be pretty...
What the flip?
Yeah, people will be pissed. It would be another time the Oilers...
Yes.
Not only... the thing is, not only did you have to win this draft lottery to even have a shot at the next draft lottery, you've got to lose in this round. I think it's pretty unlikely that that'll happen, but, you also have to consider, the Arizona Coyotes are not very good.
No,
they're fine. There's
okay. Teams like the Minnesota Wild, Arizona Coyotes. You talked about it. Who could or Columbus Blue Jackets?
The likely teams that will get that pick.
Yes, I sure hope so, because it'll be bedlam if they don't.
It is, to me. It's likely that it'll be. I mean, Chicago would be another one if Chicago gets it, but
I actually wouldn't mind Chicago if they were one of the teams.
Yeah.
They're a big market. I think the NHL would love that. I think the fans would love it, to be quite honest, because I would love to see. I mean, I think, Jonathan Taves he'd be fun to watch, having, another winger on his line. Sure. But I think even, Lafreniere with Patrick Kane would be great, regardless who you throw in at center.
Just the possibilities. I honestly, I'll tell you what, this is my dream scenario. My dream scenario is the Leafs win the cup always. That's always up there with my dream scenarios. Second dream scenario, if they're not going to win the cup, go ahead and lose in this round and get the first overall pick. But I think what like my heart says that I want to happen is for the Montreal Canadiens to win this draft lottery.
Oh, I've seen a lot of people, because like that's the dream scenario.
Going and staying the hometown, homegrown kid. I mean, it has been a long time since Montreal has had a true French-Canadian star. And I think that would be really cool.
I get it. And we talked about 4 years ago with Toronto winning the lottery, I actually was pulling for Arizona because I'm like, this kid, like, you need some excitement in the desert. And I know you weren't. Yeah.
I was actually in Vegas at the time.
Oh,
when
yeah.
that happened. Yeah.
That's great.
And I didn't put money on it, but I should have.
Yeah. But again, like, you look at, so like last year, right? Ottawa, worst team in the league. They ended up drafting fourth. Well, technically Colorado did. But L.A., at 30, they draft 5, New Jersey, then Detroit, they fell all the way to 6. Buffalo fell to 7th. So again, and then you look at the years before that too, you look at most of these teams, in the bottom 5 of the league, they've drafted usually in the top 8, but they've all fallen at some point. So again, I'm not so upset that the Wings fell again, even though it's funny. I saw a little stat somebody posted on Twitter. It was like the most lost picks by like how many spots you fell back over the last 3 years. And Detroit, of course, has fallen back the most of any team, which is kind of, it's a gut punch at that point when you look at something like that.
Yeah, they have not been very lucky.
No.
Although the last time they picked 4th overall.
Right, worked out pretty good in 1983, right? Steve
Yzerman. Let's take a look back at some of the 4th round picks.
The 4th overalls. I would love to hear.
4th overalls. We can go back really far. We can go back as far as, a nice 3-year run. 1980, Larry Murphy, Ron Francis, and then Steve Yzerman. There's every now and then there's some duds. The year that the last time the Wings picked this high in the draft was 1990, when they picked 3rd overall and they took Keith Primo, not a bad guy. Unfortunately, they missed out on Jaromir Jagr, who was taken 5th overall. 93, Paul Kariya, 4th overall. 97, Luongo. 2001, Stephen Weiss, not a bad 4th overall pick. Andrew Ladd, 04. Nicholas Backstrom in 06. Pietrangelo, 08. Kane, Evander Kane in 09. Ryan Johansson, you got Seth Jones in 2013. Even recently, 2018, you've got Brady Tkachuk. The votes out on Bowen Byram, who were taken last year. But actually, I just saw Bowen Byram is joining the Colorado Avalanche for the playoffs.
All right.
The year before that, 2017, Cal McCarr.
Yeah, not bad. Let's not talk about the year before that, though.
The year before, Jesse Puljujarvi, maybe there's a chance he could be halfway decent, but we'll see. Mitch Marner, the year before, at number 4. 2014, Sam Bennett, that's probably where it falls off. But again, you've got a great opportunity for a really nice player.
No, I don't disagree.
Star, like a potential star.
Yeah, I think when you look at the guys at the top of the draft, right, obviously Alex Lafreniere, he's number 1. There's no question about it.
And the Wings have had some fortune players falling to them later.
Yeah. Dylan Larkin, he fell.
Maybe Byfield falls. There are some mock drafts out there that have him going 3rd or 4th.
It's so because like Bob McKenzie, Darren Dreger, these draft experts, they all have like, in terms of tiers, right? They've got Alex Lafreniere up at number 1. Then just slightly below him, they've got Byfield and Stutzel. like in their own little group, and then they slightly fall off a little bit more, but it's still good. Still some really great players.
Well, and how often? I mean, that's usually how it is.
Yeah,
and
of course.
Not every. I mean, think the year Seth Jones was taken 4th overall. I mean, it was kind of this. He might go 1st overall, and then Nathan McKinnon shot way up, and I mean, you're going to get a nice player at 4.
Oh, absolutely.
There's no doubt about it. That no matter how you slice it, this pick is going to change the fortunes of the franchise.
Yeah, they could get
it should.
Well, yeah, because right now I look at it and I think maybe they're probably going to pick a guy like Marco Rossi or maybe Jamie Drysdale on defense, who would be a great 1-2 punch with, Maurice Snyder to go for the next, 10, 15 years on the back end would be fantastic. He's a right-handed guy, which, again, they don't come along that often either. And, he is projected to be the top defenseman. So, does Yzerman go that route, or does he try to get a star up front and a guy like maybe Marco Rossi, who's, a small center at 5'9", but he plays hard like, everybody's comparing him to Claude Giroux, basically, right now is what I keep hearing. And, again, like you said, regardless, I think Detroit's going to get themselves a nice player. And there's no doubt in my mind Steve Yzerman's going to do his homework. He's going to find, that diamond in the rough, or he's going to find a guy that works for their system, because I think that's what Detroit has always done well. And I think I can't remember who it was talking about Kenny Holland when he just got inducted into the Hockey Hall of Fame, and they were always talking about what he was drafting, what him and Jimmy DeMilano were drafting when they were with the Wings, and it was always guys that fit their system, not necessarily the best player available. And I think, again, maybe that's what we're going to get with Maurice Snyder here, because Yzerman spent a lot of time under Ken Holland before he went and took over in Tampa, and I think a lot of that translated into success for the Wings, so there's no doubt in my mind I think they're still going to maybe go with that same sort of model, that same idea of let's take the guy that works best for what we're trying to build and not necessarily the best guy available.
Yeah. I think it also pays off to take a look back at what Yzerman did while he was in Tampa Bay as the GM. I will say that his first-round selections weren't always great. The last time he picked this high was in 2013. He picked Jonathan Drouin at 3. So he missed out on Seth Jones. Can you imagine? Yeah. It could have been Victor Hedman and Seth Jones on the same blue line. He had just made a different pick. But he took Anthony DeAngelo. He ended up being a really nice player, just not for Tampa. Cal and Nolan Foote are kind of the jury's still out with them, but I do think that with this pick, he is going to do what he did with so many of his later round picks. I mean, there were so many great late round picks for the Tampa Bay Lightning that he was able to build that core around. So I think you're looking at this, you've got basically a can't miss guy at number 4, especially the way that they're going to develop these guys.
Yeah, and what I would love to see, just the wild card, because again, you talk about last year with Steve Yzerman, right? You had a guy with Maurice Snyder who was probably going to be bottom third of the first round. That's where he was projected to go. And Yzerman taking him at 6. I mean, we all saw the reaction when he got picked. His jaw dropped, hit the floor. I would love to see Yzerman throw the wild card out there, because this has been a position that the Wings have been looking for somebody for the future for, maybe the last 5-6 years, and that's at goaltender. You've got the guy from Russia, Askarov, who's supposed to be a stud.
Goaltender. You cannot take a goaltender.
Does he roll the dice?
No way. Not a chance.
I don't think so either, but I mean, that would be total Steve Yzerman fashion, be like, this is our guy.
I mean, yeah, he'll probably go in the first round, but it'll be like
Spencer Knight last year went at 15. That was even a little too high. When you talk about 15 for a goaltender,
just
not
the
really
player
that high,
you can get at 15. Yeah, it's just too risky. I mean, yeah, you could definitely hit, and then you're a genius. But how many goalies have made GMs look dumb,
right?
For drafting them too early?
Last time the Wings drafted a goalie or in the first round, Thomas McCullum,
yeah,
and that hasn't worked out very well,
or something like that, right?
30th, yeah.
Oh, it was 30th.
Yeah,
but
right. Still hasn't worked out very well.
The cup. Yeah. Okay, so we have an idea of, obviously we know the rest of the order. The Red Wings notwithstanding, the LA Kings picking at number 2. And the Ottawa Senators via the San Jose Sharks, obviously not protected from this draft lottery.
Wouldn't San Jose love to get their hands on this pick?
Which is unfortunate for them. I mean, the Senators going at 3 and 5. I'm wondering, like, I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, all right, what kind of, are there any trade possibilities that maybe the Senators could do to move up in this? You know, would you as a, let's say we'll just go crazy. Let's say the Pittsburgh Penguins. Man, nobody's going to pass on Lafreniere.
No, I don't think so.
But let's say the Penguins are number 1 overall, and Ottawa comes to you and says, we'll give you 3 and 5 for 1. And like you have to give them your second round pick or something like that. Would you pass on Lafreniere to get who you could get at 3 and 5?
Boy, that's tough because, okay, I like to use last year as a good example for something like this because Jack Hughes, a guy who everybody's like, okay, this guy's the number 1 center. He's obviously the number 1 pick. There's no doubt. But he didn't explode last year. He wasn't like, a 60, 70 point rookie. Right, he just came out and he was mediocre last year. He looked like he was still trying to get, still trying to get adjusted to the game. And Capo Caco was the same way. And, so I think there's no sure things. And while I think, again, Lafreniere is going to be a stud in this league, there's still no guarantee he's going to be, a 60, 70 point guy next year for whatever team you put him on, especially because he's not at center, right?
Sure.
So maybe that lessens the value on a guy like that, maybe a little bit more, although I don't think so. But
I mean, this draft, last year's draft was very weak. I mean, out of everyone taken in that draft, only 5 players played games. Only 3 more than 8 games. And that is the top 3 picks, Doc, Kako, and Hughes. And no one had more than 10 goals. No one had more than 23 points. And they all played over 60 games. It looks like Bowen Byram is going to come in and maybe play in the playoffs here for Colorado. I know there's there's players who will be good, but usually we see within the, that first year, there's more players who show up and end up making their team's roster at some point throughout the year. Now, maybe that would have happened. Obviously, the season was shortened, and so there was maybe some opportunity. And we do see some younger guys kind of come out March and April. They have some great stretches there. Maybe we'll see that come playoff time. We'll see a different look from a guy like Capo Caco. I don't know. But this draft, pretty weak in terms of like immediate NHL ready talent. But the 2020 draft, I think there could be 7 or 8 guys who actually come in, crack their team's rosters, and get going.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I look at a guy like, for example, Tim Stutzel, who I think he's got size, he's got the IQ to do it, and I think he showed at the World Championships that he can compete in the big boy league. And I think, he would be a guy, especially if I'm, considering moving down, if I got the number 1 and I'm eyeing that 3 and 5 pick, he's a guy that, is high on my radar in terms of this is why I'm doing it, right? Because I think he's a guy, more than maybe, just about anybody else at the top of the draft who I think is going to be able to come in and play. And maybe Jamie Drysdale, too, you could throw him in there. But I think those are 2 guys to me that I'd be eyeballing at 3 and 5 right now.
Yeah, Ottawa's in a pretty unique position. I'm excited. It would be pretty epic if they tried to trade up.
That would
depending on who gets that. Now, if you're Columbus or Minnesota, like one of the teams that is more deserving, I'll say, like if one of the obviously we know some team's going to get upset here in this preliminary round. There will be a team at 10, 11, or 12 that move on to the second round. It's inevitable. There's 6 of them. It's going to happen. If one of those teams, if one of the 5, 6, or 7s wins the draft lottery, are they super deserving? No, not really. But if we see, Arizona or Minnesota win the draft lottery, I think it maybe softens the blow a little bit. I think we'll look back on this when the draft is happening. If it's one of those teams, and we'll just go, okay. I mean, this could have happened anyways. Technically, it was the Winnipeg Jets spot that won the draft lottery.
Technically.
So they're technically most deserving because it was their luck that got them in there. But that would be, even there, like I wouldn't be mad about the Winnipeg Jets getting the first overall pick.
No. And I did take a look. I was kind of curious. the last time the number 1 overall pick got traded in the NHL. That was 2003. The Panthers traded the number 1 pick
for Luongo to get DiPietro.
No. They traded it to the Penguins for the number 3 pick, a second rounder, and Michael Samuelsson. And the Penguins ended up taking Marc-Andre Fleury.
Oh, yeah. DiPietro was like 2001, isn't it?
Yeah. The year before that, 2002, the Blue Jackets actually traded up from number 3 with Florida again. A team that doesn't like number 1 picks, apparently. And they took Rick Nash, of course.
Rick Nash, yeah.
So,
I forgot that they traded for that pick. Interesting. Imagine if Rick Nash had gotten Florida. Maybe they would have been okay.
Yeah.
Let's shift gears for a second. The NHL announced that the Edmonton and Toronto are going to be our hub cities. Do we know yet if is it going to be the East plays in the West and the West plays in the East? Like,
I don't know yet.
Or I
think they're still ironing that out.
Because I had heard that if it was going to be Vegas and Toronto, that they were just going to have the West play in Vegas because it seemed more like everyone's a little closer. But if Toronto and Edmonton get that home ice advantage, I can definitely see some people being a little crusty about it, especially the Oilers. For Toronto, I feel like home ice isn't always an advantage in Toronto because everyone's from the area. Like, it's an easy place to get to for all the Canadian players that live there. I know that sounds like a Don Cherry thing to say, that everyone plays their best games in Toronto because their families come and watch them play. Take that for what it's worth, but oh, sorry, we're not supposed to say his name anymore.
Well, I mean, let's face it,
blacklisted.
Oh goodness, there's going to be there's no fans here, so I'm not really too worried about.
That's true.
The one advantage you're gonna, and I think this is why you might end up seeing East teams playing in Edmonton and West teams playing in Toronto, is because they've, and again, they might work this out in some sort of detailed, with. I think right now they're trying to negotiate an extended CBA and all this other details before they move on to the next phase. But there's going to be other teams that are going to cry foul because Toronto can, essentially probably go home to their families in Toronto, right?
Well, I don't think they're going to let them.
Okay, so that's that's
they're going to do like some kind of Olympic Village thing,
right? That's kind of what I figured was going to happen, and obviously Edmonton,
because
Toronto,
they have to have to be quarantined from the outside. Now, I think the reason why ultimately the East will play in Toronto and the West will play in Edmonton is because of the time.
Sure.
Like
you want your fans to see the games.
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
And it makes sense.
It's going to be weird that, like, there's going to be, in Toronto they'll use both Ricoh and Rogers Center now.
Right.
So you've got those two arenas. I don't know if they'll use some OHL. They probably will use some OHL teams. And I guess it'll be like these two teams play at this rink, these two teams play at this rink, and they're going to play all their games at the same rink, is my guess how it'll go. But you also have to, there's also the whole setup for the TV. Man, some of those, if they play in some of those OHL arenas, they are going to have a sick setup when the NHL leaves. Because they're going to probably have to add in some additional
nice locker rooms,
additional hardware, locker rooms
for the training
the
staff,
camera, like being able to put the game on TV, not just in two different angles.
Yeah,
one from the one side and one from the other.
Yeah, I imagine they're probably going to try to stick most of their games though in those AHL and NHL stadiums.
Yeah, I just think of the OHL ones where they're they have the I know for the Plymouth Whalers when they were there. Now it's Team USA. Mm-hmm. They have their little suites, and then on top of the suites is where the broadcasters sit, like just in like this open. It's like sitting on top of a roof, basically watching a game. So that's where Doc Emmerich or something's gonna have to be sitting us up there. I don't know. Actually, I heard that they were doing play-by-play from a video.
Really?
Like they're going to have the camera guys there, and they're going to have play-by-play guys in a studio or something watching it, and then they're going to call the game like that.
I'm sure,
which is how they did it in the Olympics.
Yeah, I'm sure the studios are going to try to save every dollar they can at this point.
Yeah,
so
they need to make some money now.
Because I can imagine from a broadcaster standpoint, right? Obviously, it's a little easier to go tell a cameraman who has no clout, no pull over their fame or whatever, and say seniority, like, oh no, I don't want to go spend 2 months at this city, right, away from my family.
Yeah, true.
The studio guys probably won't want to do that, so it's easier for them to just be at home or go into the studio here for a day and then go back home to their families.
Right. Well, shoot. The draft lottery is over.
Yeah.
We know where we're going to play the next round. We just don't know when.
You know what's going to be interesting? They haven't worked out the details yet about specifically when the draft is going to take place, and it made me think, today Canada, right, we're normally used to seeing hundreds of millions of dollars handed out in contracts to all these free agents. Well, we don't even know when the free agency is going to start, right?
Right. They did vote to extend the free agency, but players are still going to get their bonuses for the next year.
I think it's $300 million, something like that.
$300 million going out today. So for absolutely nothing. So, hey, why not? I mean, for the players, I get it. I mean, at this point, you aren't going to get paid for anything because it's the playoffs. Now, there are players who get bonuses, like if you win the cup or if you win a round. I wonder how that's going to work, though, for a round. Like, does this count as a round?
I wouldn't think the plan does count as a round.
They might have it in their contract where it says, if you make it to the second round, you get a $50,000 bonus or something, or a $500,000 bonus, whatever it may be.
Be interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I think other thing you're seeing a lot of players coming out saying, I'm stronger than I've ever been. You're starting to get this off-season talk, like, I've been working and I'm ready to go. I'm faster. I'm stronger. Quinn Hughes, stronger than he's ever been. I just saw, he also said that, or who was it? Somebody talking about Jack Eichel, saying that this is, it was Quinn Hughes talking about Jack Hughes, saying like this is the best thing that could have happened to him because he'll have a 9-month break. Like all these guys who didn't make the playoffs, they got a 9-month break.
Yeah, that's not too shabby.
That all assumes that we start when we like kind of assume
in December, January, whenever. Yeah. So
I mean, it's going to be interesting to see what happens. I know the league desperately wants and needs this to happen, so they're going to go full bore. I know there also is an opt out if a player doesn't feel comfortable. He can just opt out of playing for the rest of the year, which be interesting to see who decides to do that. Like,
I could see like third or fourth liners doing that.
Oh, but no, I mean, Artemi Panarin has talked about like saying that he doesn't feel safe. Carey Price has said the same thing. We'll see. It's usually not just some third line guy. Like,
but how does that sit with the guys in the locker room who are showing up, right?
Hey,
do you put that, if that guy opts out, do you put his name on the cup still, right? If, like, for instance, in some fluke world, right, the Rangers win the cup without Panarin,
not going to happen.
Not going to, exactly. But do you put that guy's name on the cup? Do you give him a Stanley Cup ring? It's like...
There are some stipulations to whose name goes on the cup.
Right, yeah.
Like how many games you have to have played or something.
Yeah, and you have to, you could have played just one game in the finals and your name automatically gets on. And then your team can petition. There's all these wild things that they can do, but still. Be interesting.
Well, anything else before we wrap it up today? Our next show, we had to jump in and talk about the draft lottery, obviously. But our next show, we will jump back into completing our playoff preview, this time with the top 4 teams in the Western Conference: the Washington Capitals, Tampa Bay Lightning, the Boston Bruins, and of course the Philadelphia Flyers. But until then, is there anything you want to leave people with? You got any final thoughts on the Red Wings once again getting slighted?
No, I'm not.
Should the NHL do away with the lottery and just go purely based off the standings?
I would prefer that, to be quite honest, because again, I think the number of coaches that I've seen, interviews with, and people have talked to GMs, and it's at no point do these teams tank.
You're telling me that the Arizona Coyotes and Buffalo Sabres weren't tanking? What was it, like 3 or 4 years ago when they were going for Austin Matthews? Or no, they were going for Connor McDavid.
Right.
Remember that was Buffalo and Arizona had the best chance at it, and that's when the Oilers won it. Arizona dropped to 3 and they took Dylan Strome. Whoops. And the Leafs at 4 took Mitch Marner.
Whoops. Yeah, you know what? It's funny because I think at some point
they definitely were tanking.
Well, so here's the thing. I do.
The NFL tanks too.
Well, yeah, they definitely tank.
I mean,
once they've lost like 7 games and they're like 2-9, they're like, okay, yeah, we're tanking the rest of the year.
Yeah,
there's no doubt about it.
So they definitely do that in the NHL. Anyone that tells you that they're like, now a GM, they'll go, okay, well, hey, we're not trying to tank. We're trying to win. But when you trade away everyone that's reasonable on your roster, you are not trying to win.
That plays a part of it, and I do think there's going to be, an instance where you actually have a team that legitimately, this is obvious they're tanking, right? So I wouldn't mind the draft lottery just being like a little bit more heavy favored towards the guys at the bottom, but still give other teams, I would like to see their odds increased a little bit more.
And I think that the NHL went to this method when the NBA did.
Right.
Because remember the NBA, wasn't it like the Cleveland Cavaliers were the
tank for LeBron?
The last no. But before, like when this method kind of exploded, it was that I think the Cavaliers were like the best of the worst. Like they were 14th or 15th or whatever in the rankings.
Sure.
And they won the draft lottery and picked first overall. And that was, that's the first time I remember going, holy smokes, like this thing seems a little lopsided.
Right.
I don't disagree. It used to be that the most you could move up was like 3 picks or 4 picks or something like that.
Yeah, and I would love it if they throw some rules in like that, for sure.
I wouldn't mind if you had... there may be a better way to do it. I wouldn't mind if it was like, 1 through... I mean, how many teams miss the playoffs? I mean, it's about to be 16 teams miss
15.
the playoffs.
It'll be 16.
Half the teams are going to miss the playoffs. So, out of maybe the top 4, one of those teams should
get the number 1.
Should get the but then maybe out of like the top 8 can get the number 1, and then the next 8, then it opens it up to everybody. Like the number 1 maybe should be a smaller group of teams.
You draft just with those 4 teams for the number 1. Then maybe the number 2 you draft with like the next 4 or whatever.
Like you can't win the number 1 overall pick if you weren't like the 8th worst team in the league.
Okay.
And then after that you open up the other 2, 3. I think it'd be like if you were going to do that, you could just open it up 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Just have the whole thing be a freaking lottery. Have it be crazy.
Yeah, there would be
move up and down everywhere.
Yeah,
or have a lottery, the 8 teams, and those 8 teams are all like they're given. Obviously the worst team in the league is given the best odds out of those 8 teams, and you have your formula there. Those 8 teams can go anywhere 1 to 8. There you go. Then you've got your next 8. Those 8 teams can go anywhere in the 8. I would be okay with that.
I like that.
Something along those lines. Now, the downside is that does mean that the worst team in the league could end up with the 8th overall pick.
Right.
So of course you
put in rules maybe where they can't fall more than 3 spots or something.
Yeah, but then that's basically all how it is already. But then you sort of know that. Yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of potentials. I really, honestly, I don't mind at all what happened. I think it's amazing that it happened.
It's giving us a whole show.
It's going to be so fun to see what happens. Like, it gives the whole first round, the preliminary round, excuse me, it gives it so much extra meaning. Like,
it does.
Everyone, hey, this team is down 2-0. Wow, they're going to be the first team up for the first overall pick. Like, not that anyone's actually playing for it. Like, anyone who's on the roster, they don't care. They're not thinking. I wouldn't think that, if you're on the Arizona Coyotes and you're Phil Kessel, you're like, oh, we got a tank so we can get Lafreniere. So we have a 12.5% chance at Lafreniere. No, you're trying to win a cup. There's a chance. I mean, everything is up in the air right now. So you're trying your best to do that, but not a bad consolation prize.
I would say so.
Not a bad consolation prize. All right, that's our show. You can find us on Twitter at OT Hockey Talk. Let us know your thoughts on the draft lottery. And as things continue to play out, the NHL moves ever so closer to their camps opening up in 9 days from now. We will keep you abreast to all things going on in the NHL training camps. Until then, happy Canada Day, and we'll talk to you guys soon.